So an Aggie and a Longhorn walk into a bar. No, I'm just kidding. But they do stop for some sweet tea. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Sweet Tea series. I know it's been a while since you guys have seen me in the Austin set, so I'm glad to be back here. But today I'm actually joined by someone who himself is bouncing back and forth between DC and Austin all the time these days. He is the CEO of the Texas Public Policy Foundation and of the America First Policy Institute. Greg Sindelar, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I feel like I'm invading a space that I don't belong here, but I appreciate you having some sweet tea
on the Sweet Tea series set. Yes. It's very similar to the one that you have whenever you're recording your show. Right. And that's the Arena with Greg Sindelar.
Yeah.
And you tell me a little bit about that show and the content you have.
Yeah, well, really just started. A lot of people, as I traveled around the state, didn't really know a lot about elected officials. And I was like, well, why don't we do something where we learn a little bit about some of our elected officials, what motivates them, why they got involved, why they want to do this, what's important to them, so that we can have that out there. And so that's literally the whole reason for why we started that.
It's a cool show, and I like those conversations that break just the normal political stuff. Like, you can talk about your favorite restaurants, Whataburger.
I always ask that. Like, if I'm in your district, which is actually the most controversial question, because then they feel like they're going to get in trouble, but if I'm in your district, where should I eat? And they're like, that's where they really sweat. They're like, oh my God, like, I don't, like, who am I going to
make some enemies today?
Yeah, because I don't mention them.
Hey, and probably some loyal supporters, though, from that.
That's right.
Well, we have some sweet tea with us today, but I understand that your daughter appreciates sweet tea more than you. So my first question, that's serious. What is wrong with you, Greg?
What gives you the right?
Yeah.
Yes, well, I was born, I have Midwestern parents, and I was born in Nebraska, although I got to Texas as fast as I could. When I always tell people I did all my education in Texas, right? So I'm properly Texan, but I'm used to unsweet tea. But my wife, who is a true Texan, was born and raised in Houston, Texas. She's a sweet tea person. My daughters, but especially my younger daughter, really loves sweet tea, and she always gets mad if she tries to drink mine, and she realizes, like, it's just regular brown water. She's like, where's the sugar? So yes.
Well, I'm glad hopefully today you can tell her about
don't worry. Yeah.
Good. And I'm sure she'll be very proud of you.
Yes, you will be.
So you're also the reason I wanted to have you on the show, for one thing, is Sweet Tea is obviously a production of the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Mm-hmm. And by the time this comes out, we would have just launched our LAAs, or Legislative Action Agenda. So I definitely want to get into what the future is of TPPF. Mm-hmm. Also, you're a girl dad.
I am.
And I feel like today is probably not the easiest time to raise people with conservative values. Okay. So we are going to be covering a little bit of ground, some more serious policy stuff, but we'll get fun as well.
Okay, great.
But you've been at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, I think, longer than anyone else here now, right?
Almost. Sherry Hannerhan was here when I got here. But I hired James Quintero. I hired Sarah French. So yes, I'm number 2 on the seniority list. Almost. It's like 18 and a half years. Yeah. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I was realizing because I was just going
really
back through to see one.
Back then. It was great. It's great. I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. Like, life was so easy.
Is that weird to look back at the foundation starting? I mean, obviously not in the big building that we had now, but a small team growing into what it was. What's changed over the years? Well,
it's funny is this morning I was actually reading. We have this donor communication called Veritas, and I was reading one from 2009. It's about our 20th anniversary. I don't even remember why I was like searching for it, but I found it. And I was reading some interviews from Fritz Steiger, who founded TPF, Jeff Judson, who was CEO at TPF before Brooke Rollins. And they were just talking about like this behemoth that TPF had become in 2009, when probably in 2009 we had like 18 employees, right? And when I joined in 2007, we had like 10 to 12. I was like the 10th or 12th employee, right? But we were in the black, and we were able to make payroll every month, and it was different. And sometimes it feels like that was just yesterday, and then sometimes it feels like that was a completely different lifetime, because what Texas looked like then, what TPF looked like then, is very different than what it looked like today. But I think Texas now, the reason it is how it is as large part due to the work of TPPF.
So how does an organization like TPPF, that's been around since 1989, continue to have the same framework and philosophy and stay grounded over all that time?
Well, you know who you are, right? I think first and foremost, it helps that you have the right board members, right? I always tell our board that they are like the keepers of the flame. That's, as an Aggie, it's a term that's ingrained to me. Like we always talk about the core at A&M as the keepers of the flame. Well, our board, especially our executive committee, is like the keepers of the flame. So when you have people like Dr. Leiniger, Chaz Neely, even newer folks like Vim Head or Wendy Grimes, like these people won't let you stray. And the most important thing is, you know who you are, you know what you're about. And I always know as CEO, and I actually told them this at our last board meeting, if we do the right thing, I know they have my back, right? Mm-hmm. And that makes it very freeing to go do the right thing. That if just because we upset some politician or some person, they're not going to make me reverse course as long as we are doing the right thing. And that keeps you on the right track.
So when you have principled people holding on to them, that's awesome.
And you get them together, and that helps everyone stay courageous, right?
So in the last almost 2 decades that you've been here, what are some of the accomplishments of the foundation that you are really proud of?
Well, yeah, first and foremost would be school choice, right? That was the big one. It's a founding issue of TPPF, and when I became CEO in late 2021, as I went and met with very selected officials, and they'd be like, what do you want to accomplish? I was like, you know, you were seeing kind of that post-COVID stuff, what was happening in Virginia and all these other things. And you're like, you know, maybe now is the time for school choice. And they just be like, that is so cute. So cute that you want to go do that. That will never happen in Texas, but you go, you know, waste your time, be Don Quixote tilting windmills. But we built that. We built a coalition. We built support. We made the case for that, and it didn't happen overnight. We failed and failed and failed. In the 23rd session, great leadership from Lieutenant Governor and the governor at the time, and then you saw political consequences of all of that, and then the House completely changed, and you had leadership from the Speaker, and it was kind of strange how that all came about last session. But I remember talking to the speakers like, we're thinking about doing this or that, or how can I help, or are there any members where we can be in their districts? And he's like, we got it, it's fine, don't worry about it. And he was right. Yeah. In fact, we ended up with more votes than he even said. And so just watching, like, you get the right people in the right seats at the right time, what can happen, and watching Mandy and her team really do that is something that's you're very proud of, because you see people go do their thing, and it's kind of amazing. But besides that, you look at the reason that we have all these surpluses, we're able to have fights over what we do with that money. That started with a really simple idea of, well, maybe the budget shouldn't grow more than population and inflation, and that was something that even when we didn't have the best relationships in the Texas House, but over time, we really showed that could be done and conservative governance could happen, because it wasn't that long ago in Texas that we had massive budget deficits. And so
which is hard to imagine for looking at how things look now. Yeah,
that's right. Well, but Talmadge Heflin, who used to work here, he was chair of Appropriations and Ways and Means. We had I think it was a $12 billion deficit, and he navigated all of that in 2003 without we didn't raise taxes, right? Like, that showed that you could figure this out if you prioritize the right spending. But at the core, we need to make sure that we're not spending more than we have. And I think that is a core function that we need to see across all levels of government. But it became a custom here in the legislature every year. And then it became codified in law in, I'm trying to remember if that was the 19 or 21 session. And it's great. Like, that's allowed us to continue to have these surpluses, not to mention and keep government out of the way of people and allow people to move here and thrive with their businesses and their families.
Do seeing victories, like especially with the school choice fight, which you were saying even 5 years ago, people were saying it's just a cute little dream that you had. Does that give you more hope for other policy positions that TPPF has, just that anything is possible if you stick to your principles over time?
Well, 100%. And, I think Senator Phil Gramm has always said, never underestimate an idea whose time has come. And but if you have the culture, you have the right policy, and then if you have the right champions, right? and you build the right case, then I think anything's possible. And so I'm very bullish on what's going to continue to happen. I think last session was really good. Did you get everything you want? No, of course not. But I think you have to have a really long-term view of policy. Like, this stuff didn't happen overnight. We didn't get into maybe some of the positions we are overnight. We're not going to change them overnight. And if you have that long-term view, and I like to tell our staff, we're radical incrementalists, right? So if you can get 20, 40, 50%, but just keep making progress, eventually you get all the way there. And so things that seemed impossible not long ago, I think we will absolutely, as we look into the next session, the 90th, ban taxpayer-funded lobbying. I think we will get on a permanent pathway to eliminating school property taxes. I think we will hold locals to account. Where actually all of this is really happening. I think we'll make some strides to continue to ensure our grid is reliable and affordable as a big part of that as well, and a myriad of other things. And you think about some of the family-related things, foster care-related things, healthcare-related things that conservatives typically haven't been so at the forefront of. TPPF will be at the forefront of, and that's exciting, and that's where we want to be. We want to lead. We want to show a path forward. We want to show that we're for something, not just as conservatives against something.
Could you have imagined 20 years ago all of being able to list all of those issues as stuff that TPPF is focusing on in one legislative session?
Well, no, because back then we had 10
all 5
employees.
of you.
Yeah, we had 10 employees, and I was just trying to make sure the internet stayed up, right? And so it is amazing, right? You look back over time, and I think that appreciates you. You have to understand where you came from, and then I think, as I always see myself as a steward of the organization, and I want to, there's a lot of sacrifices people made. I think about, people like Talmadge or Mary Catherine or Bill or some of these other people who spent countless sleepless nights working on stuff. Brooke, obviously. And you want to, in the current moment, I want to earn all that sacrifice. And I want to create something that in the future, people are trying to earn that sacrifice as well. And so that's that we're making right now. And that's how I think you build something really special. And I think that's what we've done here.
And part of that, which I think you're starting to touch on, is the culture that you're creating and the mentality of the people around you. And you were someone who, prior to getting into your leadership position now, you were for a while working in operations, right? Mm-hmm. What is the backbone of that kind of culture in an organization? How do you get that?
Operations is pretty simple. It's the customer service wing of an organization like this. So, my customers, when I was running what I call the operations business side of the organization, was everyone else. And so I wanted to make sure their jobs were easy. I wanted to make sure they got paid. I always told people, I was like, people in an organization can withstand a lot as long as they're getting paid, right? And so that was number one. Number two, making sure that we were good stewards of every dollar that came through, right? Because I saw the effort that Brooke and JB and Sherry and others were putting out to go raise all of those funds. And so we want to make sure that we put those forth and we're very responsible with all of those. And three, that they had the tools they needed to be productive and go do these things, right? I didn't want them worried about their computers failing or the internet going down or not having the resources to do this event that was going to matter to actually moving the policy down the line. So I felt like my job was to ensure that their jobs were easy. And that's kind of, I guess, where all that started. So
just let people do their jobs and then they'll do it.
We'll take care of all the rest. You go just focus on passing policy.
Something that I really appreciate about working at the Texas Public Policy Foundation is the culture. And part of that is the happy warrior mentality, which I think encourages you to spend a few sleepless nights. Whenever the people are at the Capitol until 2 a.m. with school choice, that also meant comms team is waiting to tweet out at 2 a.m. But people are happy to do it because we believe in the mission. But another thing I like is the saying that we sometimes have, the reward for good work is more work.
Or as Jerome used to say, the winner of the pie eating contest gets more pie.
Exactly,
yeah.
But in your case, that ended up being your work now at the America First Policy Institute. I'm just wondering, on a personal level, how is that going? You're traveling to D.C. back and forth. Do you get enough sleep, Greg? Are you okay?
Actually, yeah. I talked to, we share a couple board members, which makes it helpful. But the only way it's possible is the way that I actually see like leadership and running. Right? Leadership is just getting things done through other people. So I believe that if you create the right structures, you get the right people in the right spots, you have clarity on like what the vision is, what the expectations are, and you provide some basic accountability, then people are fairly self-governing and they'll go out and accomplish great things. And so I'm very comfortable not being in the middle of a lot of things and understanding that all of this is actually not about me. It's probably why I ended up here running TPPF and AFPI. I never actually was seeking any of this out, but I know that what makes these institutions special is the work they do. Not necessarily, it's not about the people, right? Like I don't want TPF to be about me. I want to be about the policies and the priorities. I don't want AFPI to be about me. And it wasn't, I've told Brooke this. I told the board at AFPI this. I was like, this is not the Brooke Rollins Policy Institute. It's the America First Policy Institute. And so what does that mean, right? Like, well, we serve, who do we serve, right? Like we serve the American people, and we're especially the forgotten men and women of this country. And TPF, it's similar. It's a little bit more focused, obviously, on Texas. And so I think if you have a mindset of what it is you're actually like fighting for, one, it becomes a privilege to do it, right? Like a lot of people don't get to do this type of work. And then two, you just realize like this is something far greater than you, and you're just trying to steward it into a better spot, knowing that someday that will change and you might not be the right person to continue driving that bus, and that's okay. But if you build the right structures, you get the right people, you build something that's far sustainable and have a legacy way past my time at either organizations.
So it sounds a lot of it is bringing on people that you can trust and then actually putting your trust in them.
Yeah,
to do their jobs.
If you hire somebody, let them go do their job. Like it's not rocket science. Are they going to fail? Are they going to make mistakes? Absolutely. It's my job to maybe clean up some of those mistakes, handle angry politicians and all these other things. Yeah, but if you have people who their heart is in the right place, they are wanting to accomplish the right things, then you can handle all of that. Like that's fine. And and you can help them hone judgment and hone strategies and tactics, right? And that's part of my job. But my job is not to sit there and tell them every little thing that they need to do every day. But if something is going off track or is not working the right way, like then it is my job to start bringing that back on track and like helping them do that. And you'd hope over time they hone that, and people will make mistakes, but they don't make the same mistakes. And that's how you kind of build over time. And think about when you start at TPPF, probably some of the mistakes you made you don't make anymore, and you're probably almost like sometimes embarrassed, like I can't believe I did that.
Andrew still makes fun of me for one social media video I made him do with the dancing. Sorry for bringing it up again, Andrew, but there's ones I will not live down.
I don't think that was a mistake, because that's hilarious to look at Andrew doing that. But that's how you learn, right? Like like failure is just it's just tuition towards success, right? So you can't be afraid of that. And as an organization, you can't be afraid to make mistakes, because if you do, what happens is you have a culture that is afraid to do anything, and that's when institutions die. And we can't have that at TPF, can't have that at AFPI. And so you hire people, let them go do their jobs.
So what does that look like in terms of your personal life and being able to manage and balance family life? What does that support system look like for you? Well,
you have to have a very understanding partner, spouse, which I do. I have an incredibly understanding wife and kids who understand that I'm be gone a lot. To me, it's not that weird, because when I was growing up, my dad traveled all the time, and I was used to him being gone. But I know that's abnormal for most, and it took some getting used to. And now, granted, I was already traveling a fair amount for TPPF, and it takes understanding boards to know you can't be there all the time, but they believed in the vision of what I was trying to do at both. And you're just very transparent, and sometimes you get it wrong, and sometimes there are days where you're like, I'm so bad at this, I'm gonna get fired. But that's okay. But my thought process is I'll just go drive Ubers or something like that. It'll be all right. It's not a big deal. Like, this isn't the end of the world. Like, as long as you're trying your best, like, everything else will work out. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure my wife and my kids are taken care of, and that they know that they are the most important thing to me. And there were times last year where I knew I was bad at prioritizing that, but I really focused on setting up things to ensure that this year especially, I'm not gone quite so much, and I can be present a lot more with my family.
Well, something you were touching on right now, that fear of, oh no, I'm going to get fired if this doesn't go right.
It's healthy.
I'm trying.
Everyone should have that.
Well, now I'm trying to figure out, like, oh, is that good or bad that feeling never goes away?
It never goes away. It's like wanting to know what you want to do when you grow up. That never goes away either. Like, is this what, and that's if you have faith, right? You're like, is this what God is wanting me to do? I don't know. Like, that's discernment, that's judgment. You're trying to figure that out. But you also can't be fearful of potentially making mistakes and getting fired. Like, that could happen. Do I have enough confidence in myself that I'll figure it out and I'll go do something else? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think that's going to happen? Not really. But tomorrow the TPPF board could say, we want to do a change of direction. You're not right fit. That's okay. That's the market. That's how this stuff works, and you can't be afraid of that.
It's a beautiful peace of mind, I guess, that you can have. Well, whenever you're thinking, not anxiety.
If you know what's really important, like my values, my self-worth is not tied up in being CEO of TPPF or AFPI. It's really important, and I'm honored and privileged to do the work. But like what's more important to me is like the work, of being a parent, and like making sure my children know I love them, and like trying to be a good husband, even though I'm terrible at that all the time, right? Like, so that's actually like way more important to me than actually being CEO. So if you have your priorities in the right way, it is a little freeing, at the end of the day.
Well, let's talk a little bit about parenthood then. So I don't have any kids yet, but right now you're raising two
Catholic,
daughters.
Though, so it's yet, right?
Matter of time, yes.
I was at a dinner last night with all these Catholics, and I was like, I only have 2 kids. And they're like, well, I have 7. I have 8. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a terrible Catholic.
Well, I'm hoping to add myself to those numbers one day. So keep us in your prayers for sure.
Absolutely.
And actually everyone. Yeah, I'm always welcoming prayers for our future family. But as a dad of daughters in modern America, what is that like? I'm just imagining the types of issues and conversations that might have to be moved up that normally wouldn't have happened until much later, especially if you I went to a Catholic school, relatively sheltered, but what does that look like now, Greg?
Yeah, well, both my girls were in public school. During COVID, we took my youngest out. She has autism and dyslexia and stuff like that. So we found a private school that worked well for her. It's actually one of the reasons I'm so passionate about school choice, because I've seen how it's transformed her life. But the other one, she went to private school, wasn't the right fit. She went back to public school and she's thriving. She's doing great. But there are issues that when I was a kid, probably even when you were a kid, that we didn't deal with. Like, I didn't really think about the trans issue when I was 12 years old or 13 years old.
Or an example, I live in Manor ISD, and in the summer, when again, school isn't in session, but for some reason the school thinks it's important to have on their big sign that, the electronic signs that the school have, a big thing about Pride Month. Yeah. And it's great to know where tax dollars are going.
Right? And furries. I didn't really know much about furries, and my daughter's telling me about some at her school, and then I was talking to Representative Gerdes about his bill, and I was like, man, I didn't even know this was
your
a thing.
Your daughters are young. They're not in high school we're talking about. Right? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so
wait, so furries because people identify as furries?
Yeah, people bark at other people and I guess meow at other people and stuff like all these things. Luckily, there hasn't been a push to put in litter boxes or anything like that. But I was talking to someone actually in DC earlier this week that was a high school student that's telling me that their high school is they've had to look at that, and that was in Oregon, right? You'd expect outside Portland. This probably is a bigger thing. Yeah. But yeah, I don't really think a lot about, am I raising, a conservative or liberal child? I think a lot about, does my child share my values, right? Because my parents on the political spectrum are not as conservative as I am. But they raised us with certain values of what is right and what is wrong. And I always give my dad a hard time because growing up I didn't go to church that often. And now me and my sisters, we all go to church every week, right? I was like, man, as a heathen dad, you really didn't do it right. But there were certain values that they instilled in us, and my wife and I share those values. That's why we got married, and we work on just instilling those, and they know what is right or wrong. And even if they might not agree maybe with trans ideology, but we also teach them like we love everybody, and you should be kind to everybody, and that's the way you go about it. But my youngest, this is part of the beauty of like having a child on the spectrum, is like things can be very black and white. And I remember my wife's cousin one time, he was in college, and he had this very progressive girlfriend, and they were talking about this issue, and my daughter, who was probably like 7 or 8 at the time, was like, she's like, this is not hard. You either are a woman or a guy. Like it's not
Wow.
it's not like you're one or the other. Like you either you have one or the other. And they're like, well, it's more complicated than that. She's like, no, it's not. And she was like arguing with them, like it's really not. Like it doesn't mean that there might be other societal norms you don't want to adhere to. But she didn't get into that. She didn't say that. But she's like, that doesn't mean you can't wear a dress, but you're still either a guy or you're a girl. And I was
Wow.
like, man, that's good. It didn't really have anything to say to it, right? And so, but I think, you just reiterate your values, you live your values, you understand that we're all going to make mistakes, and how do you deal with that? And none of us are perfect, and we're all complex, right? Like even like my 13-year-old, she's been getting really into, she's like a 40-year-old guy. She's getting really into World War II, which is interesting. But we talk about Hitler, and we're watching this thing, and he's like playing with like his German Shepherd, and she's like, so weird to see him smiling. I'm like, yeah, evil people can have joy in this world, right? Like it doesn't mean that what he did was evil, but there were people who loved him. There were people he loved, right? Like that's the complex nature of human beings, and so you just try to expose them to things, explain to them, things, and as a Catholic, like try to explain to them like this is the church view on this, and this is what we think is right, what is wrong, but you try to just have an open dialogue.
So it sounds like the solution, because I guess what I'm wondering is there's a lot of stuff that you used to be able to shelter from and hold off conversations until maybe you're at an older age to process things. But I remember learning about abortion early on because some student brought it up, and how I forgot what election it was. Maybe it was like the John McCain era. This is maybe 2008-ish, but someone had brought up, like, I'm in 3rd grade at this
point. That's like
point.
year 2 of me at TPPF. That's so much older.
Well, when I was in 3rd grade, Greg, there was this one girl talking about like the right to choose or something like that, and she's probably just parroting what her parents said. And I asked my parents, like, what is that? I don't know what this is. Yeah. And I don't know if they were ready to talk about the horrors of abortion, but that became a pivotal thing for me, and just like my values, and like understanding that there is something that you have to care about, and that public opinion and public policy is something that's important. But that's interesting that the way that you're governing it is issues might come up at an earlier point, but then you just handle it with honesty.
Yeah, I think you have to be. And what I want is I want my children to be intellectually curious. And I also understand, because, my own experience, like I've had varying views on things over time, and they've evolved over time, which I think is normal. And so I know that what they think or what they believe now might not reflect what they believe in 30 years. And so what I don't want to do is ever close off those conversations, right? Because to this day, as I said earlier, like I don't always agree on everything with my parents, but I can have like the conversation still with my parents, with my dad and my mom. And I have one sister who is very aligned with me, and one sister who is not as aligned with me. But we can have like those conversations, and so you try to model that, and you want that. I want that. Like they will have varying experiences in their lives that will shape how they feel about things. And at the end of the day, I just hope that the values that we've instilled since an early age will kind of shine through.
My dad always talks about whenever he is speaking to other parents that he feels the thing that's most important to him is, are my daughters going to go to heaven? Do they desire that for themselves? And that's what he sees as the mark of good parenthood.
And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself.
But I see that within marriage too. Like one thing that I love about having found another Catholic to marry is that I know that that's both of our mission. And that's part of why I hope that people, or this is like something I haven't talked about on the show, but I think it is important to find someone who shares your faith, because that is the ultimate mission in life.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's the values that underlie that. But, I was not Catholic when I got married. I became Catholic because of my wife. And I became Catholic because to get married in the church, I had to agree to like raise my children in the faith and all these other things. And I started asking a lot of questions of my deacon, who I loved. And he was so funny because he goes, I'm really not trying to convert you. He goes, but if you go to RCIA, they will talk about all of this and answer all these questions. And he's like, he goes, you don't have to do this, but if you want to go. And I was like,
and just to let people know, the RCIA, which is now called OCIA, it stood for Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults. Now it's Order of Christian Initiation. Yeah. Either way, it's the classes that people go to if they're becoming Catholic.
Yeah,
so.
That's right. And, as I told you, I grew up not really going to church. Like, I went to Bible school a few times when I was a kid. I date various people, go to various churches. Never quite felt comfortable in one, but until I started actually going to a Catholic church, because I'm an Aggie, right? I love tradition, and I like that it goes all the way back to St. Peter, right? Like I like that really like spoke to me. And but then as I went through RCA, I was like, I really actually love this. And they talk a lot about the Old Testament, the New Testament, and it answered a lot of the questions I had. And so I went from like not really going to church much to now I go all the time. But also on the same, right before I got married, I got baptized, first communion, confirmed, all at the Easter vigil, right? My wife is actually my godmother, which is, I don't know if that's weird or not, but she's my godmother.
But it's the way it is. But I think that's beautiful, though.
Yeah, but it was actually a really beautiful experience. And like, there are times you'll find this when you do have kids, like where just making the effort to go is really difficult. But Kevin Roberts actually told me this once. He goes, you don't expect yourself to be perfect all the time. Like you're not going to be. As a parent, you're not going to be. But it's like when you get off track, you just figure out a way to get back on track. And it's actually, being a girl dad, I've watched a lot of Disney princess movies, and in Frozen 2 they have this song called like "Do the Next Right Thing," and like I think about that all the time. Like we're gonna have a week or two where maybe we don't make it to mass, and I don't feel guilty about that, or we don't do this, we don't do that, and it's like, all right, can't do anything about that, I can't go fix that now, but it's like I gotta do the next right thing. And that's what you constantly trying to instill in my children, is like, you're gonna make mistakes, but just don't make the next one.
Well, to steer things back in terms of doing the next right thing. Yeah, we're like all over the map.
I'm sorry.
But, well, no, this is a great. I'm going to. Don't worry, Greg. I have a transition here.
Okay.
Speaking of doing the next right thing, looking into next session, which seems far out. So, do you like the transition there?
I do. That's very good.
But this might feel to you like you picking between kids. But if there is an issue that you're really excited about that we're taking on for next session, what is that? Like, what do you want to leave people with? Is here's something to look into that TPPF is doing next?
Yeah, well, to me, like, if I could pick one,
I know,
right?
it's a hard one. We're pretty
really
cool.
Tough.
We
It's
got
like,
some cool stuff.
It's like picking amongst your favorite children. It would be, banning taxpayer-funded lobbying, because it has such a insidious effect amongst other things, right? Like, you think about some of the issues we have on the education front, or some of the issues we have on property taxes. It all goes back to this, right? Where people's tax dollars are actually being used in Austin against them. And we hear all the time, like, people, like, talk to mayors, city councilmen, like, oh, well, how do you expect us to be involved? And I'm like, you have an elected official that represents this area. Mm-hmm. Like, talk to them. You have a direct line to them. They want to hear from you. And the city of Austin, or Austin ISD, I think, spends millions of dollars a year on lobbyists, right? And so it's and if you walk the Capitol, like, you see so many of your tax dollars just walking around fighting against the things that you care about. And so anyway, and I think what we really need is we need people involved. And but if we are able to change that and start changing that, then I think that will really start changing a lot of that, like, swampy culture that people get so frustrated here in Austin. And people always ask me, like, what's the difference between Austin and DC? I was like, well, they both have a swamp, but I was like, the bigger swamp in Austin is actually your tax dollars being used to lobby against you.
So I guess we'll see if the swamp gets a little bit less swampy after next session.
We got to have a long look at it, and we got to make the case for it.
Well, Greg, I want to thank you for spending time with me today to speak through all of these things. And also, I want to thank you for helping develop the culture that we have here and help make it a great place to work. So
Of course.
thank you for all of your work. So for everyone else, please go check out the new legislative action agenda from the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Thank you again, Greg, and everyone else. I will see you next time.